What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, coming to you this week with a big matchup the Packers have against the San Francisco 49ers Sunday night, I believe. And to break down that entire matchup is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, not to be fact checker,
But it's
not to be
three twenty
political.
five. Yep, I just
There
saw
will
that.
be night at some point when the game is being played.
Yep,
Excuse me.
and we get Tom Brady again. That's right. But enough
Oh,
about.
he's
You
gonna
can go listen to the last. You
salivate
can go
over
listen to the last episode of Talk of the
Malafleur.
Tundra. You can go listen to the last episode of Talk of the Tundra if you want to hear Jordan's takes on Tom Brady.
You don't take it for granted.
That's right. But before we get into the Packers Niners matchup, we do have some cheeses to give away, and there's a good list of possible recipients this week. So let's get into it. First and foremost, the first candidate to get a cheese or to possibly get a cheese is Christian Watson.
No, we're
Four
do it.
four
Let's just do it right
catches,
away.
four
Let's not
catches,
screw around.
four targets, 150 yards, and a 93.0 PFF grade. Next up is Carl Brooks, also up for candidacy, 29 defensive snaps. it's the game-winning block field goal, 93.5 PFF grade. Jordan was pantomiming Vince Carter's "It's Over," so he's obviously the second recipient. Four more to go. I'm not really sure what Jordan plans on doing with these ones, but Rashawn Gary, 46. Oop. Sorry about that, folks. My phone went off. uh, Rashawn Gary, 46 snaps, 6 combined tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 2 QB hits, 5 pressures, and 1 tackle for a loss. Josh Jacobs, 18 carries, 76 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 catches on 5 targets, 58 receiving yards. Uh, then it's Jordan Love, 13 to 17, 261 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 113 passer rating, and then 4 carries, 18 rushing yards, and a touchdown for him on the ground as well. Last up, Zach Tom, 46 snaps and 2 pressures allowed. So, Jordan, you pantomimed "It's Over" regarding uh, Carl Brooks and Christian Watson. Those two guys getting cheeses. Who's our third recipient? Who's your candidate for the third one?
I'm very torn because I feel like the best weeks of determining our cheeses is when you have a preconceived notion. You watch the game,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's right away or you, like me, have to replay it back. And you're like, oh, that's the guy. That's the third guy. These are the three that I have in mind. And then you take in information. You do your research, if you will. Um,
You got to make sure you do
and
your own research.
yeah, you got to do your own research. You take in the numbers, you take in the facts, and you start to do it. And you look around like, do I have my three? I don't know. My where I was to start the week, I should say Sunday night. I probably would have said Josh Jacobs. Then I went to Jordan Love despite the interception. Then PFF grades come out. PFF numbers come out.
Yeah,
Rashawn Gary had the sack, had a lot of pass rushes, or pressures, I should say specifically.
5 of them, including
I
including
don't
one at an important time in the game.
One an important time, the final series, of course, the before the uh, Carl Brooks happened. The reigning NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, of course, when you block out game winning kicking. Who else is it going to go to? It's not going to go to Cairo Santos, that's for sure.
Nope, because he's a bear. We don't give
Um,
cheeses to opposing teams.
no, we don't. You know, you teach a bear to fish, you make him a bear for life, or whatever that is. Wherever the saying goes. Um, what?
I don't even know where you're going with that.
You give a bear a cheese a day, you feed him till he's hungry. But if you give him a cheese a year, well, then
If
you're just
if you've ever watched Trailer Park Boys, this is like when Ricky tries to say some sort of metaphor that's commonplace and messes it up. That's
There
what
you go.
that's what this is right now.
Um, so I think my final verdict, it's very tough because I don't think it's not like an A plus game for any of these players. I think I would, no, I'm not that,
Not that you're
it's, it's a tentative third. I could easily be talked out of this, but I would say Gary
you're saying Rashawn Gary.
again. It's up for a debate.
I
See,
think,
that noise that you just made right there.
yeah,
That is, it's. I'm sure some listeners are right now thinking, really?
yeah.
But
I don't think he's undeserving. I think it's one of his better games of the year for sure. I'm
and
partial to give it to Josh Jacobs because I think he was most of their offense through and through, like all day long on Sunday. And that's where I struggle like not getting giving him one because he was so reliable on Sunday that he really like was needed early on. Like he's what got the offense going for the most part um in the first half. Has over 100 yards from scrimmage, so like that's obviously a plus. I think I'm ruling out for sure Josh or Zach Tom
Jordan,
and Jordan Love.
yes, yeah.
I don't think they cross the threshold to where I'm willing to give them a cheese. The issue therein lies is that do you give it to the guy who's uh, been doing pretty well all season long? Like um, I think the way Josh Jacobs has performed and gotten cheeses in the past would rise to the fact that I see you're holding the quarter. Would rise to the fact that like he's had better performances and maybe this performance doesn't go as far as giving him a cheese. I'm trying to find the post now to see how many he's at. He's at 3 right now, leading the team. Rashawn Gary has 1. I'm trying to see.
I don't want that to
No, I
filter in.
know,
I think.
I know. I'm just trying to degrade here what we're looking at, kind of thing. You have the quarter out. I'm not opposed to flipping a coin to this, but I do want to check um Josh Jacobs's like other games to make sure that like if
The
this
ones that he won for the week.
no not that just like his game log so because like we can like probably approximate which ones he got one against Indy where he had 150 yards rushing, that's for sure. And then he probably got one against Jacksonville for 127 yards on the ground against Jacksonville and 2 touchdowns there. And then last week and then against the Lions as well. That would be his 3, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I think I'm fine going Gary, just for the precedent we've set for Jacobs to get a cheese. I think I'm fine with that. He had a really good week, Josh Jacobs did, but um, I think this is without a doubt Rashawn Gary's like best game of the year so far, and I would rather reward that than give Jacobs another cheese, even though he probably is deserving. Unless unless we give out 4. It's always
No. I don't think this is a four game.
all right.
I think this is where, with our discretion, and listeners may be disagreeing right now. You need for it to be four. I don't think anybody could say this is an A. You have to be in like an A level
Yeah,
game. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I
Like A
understand.
plus, A minus. I know it's not the order.
Yeah,
A minus, A plus. I think Josh Jacobs is the closest to an A,
yeah.
but it's still
If you think
not
Josh
all
Jacobs
there.
is the closest to an A, does that mean Rashawn Gary is not an A? Which means we should probably give it to Jacobs. I know you give that look now, and
All right, we're flipping this coin.
okay,
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
who's
Heads.
heads is who?
Heads is Jacobs. Tails is Gary.
Okay, flip it up. There goes the
Oh,
action.
tails. So it's scary.
All right, Rashawn Gary it is.
And the
Congratulations.
coin is back.
Congratulations, Rashawn. Good on you.
Good
Um,
on you.
and that's that. So, three recipients this week: Christian Watson, Carl Brooks, and Rashawn Gary. Alrighty, let's move into some news and notes this week for the Packers. It was announced from the organization that Mark Murphy will be inducted into the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame on August 28th, 2025. That's their like annual time when they do that. Um, the Packers waste no time after Mark Murphy's eminent retirement to get him right into the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so, as a good steward of the Packers throughout his entire career, obviously, and just a guy that deserves that recognition from the franchise. So I'm honestly like a little surprised that they're just like, "Yep, immediately in," but at the same time, it's like, "Duh." Like I thought they just like wait like a year for the fact that uh, it's literally like what 3 months after he's done.
Not even honestly. I think it's his last day would it coincides with his birthday, so it's like July 20th. I don't know why that
That's my
number.
birthday, Jordan.
Happy birthday, Mark Murphy and Numac. But
I don't think that's his birthday,
um
but go on.
I'm looking it up.
I think it's
But
near the end, but whatever.
it's July 13th. I was a week off.
Yeah, there you go.
Um what was I saying?
Mark Murphy.
Mark Murphy, I think part of it is like it's not like a player. I'm sure they probably did this with Bob Harlan. Um
I'd imagine so.
so yeah, I think it's a kind of I mean, you're not gonna have it's probably better that it's fresh because you have a more fresh perspective rather than if you had to wait, you would kind of just like it would be a more fitting cap to obviously going out on top with the draft being in Green Bay next year and like, who's to say what will be accomplished this year? But uh yeah, I think again it's unmistakable that Mark Murphy is a when you talked about the this era of the Green Bay Packers, Mark Murphy is near or at the top of the list.
Yeah,
It,
I'd say.
it's obviously out the field. It's pretty unmistakable, and even then, he still weaves into the story of Brett Favre, into the
Mm-hmm.
story of Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy, the people that make it responsible or are responsible for the success of the Green Bay Packers. But it starts at the top. It starts at hiring these people and putting them in position to succeed. Ted Thompson, RIP. Like again, like, and I think too. I think I'm be very interested. And we kind of have touched on it when we kind of look back on periods of time in Packers history where you know maybe it wasn't so familiar to us at the time, but when you read on things and it's like Mark Murphy had a really challenging job to start. Obviously the
Yeah,
Favre stuff, but the original successor to Bob Harlan was only in office. I believe it's Jack Jones or
John Jones.
John Jones, only in office for a year. Then Bob Harlan took over for him when health problems arose. Then they turned it over to Mark Murphy. So it's like one, you're kind of following the footsteps of Bob Harlan, who I believe I forget who said it, but of the three people that were like the biggest people in Packers history, they said Vince Lombardi, Curly Lambeau, and Bob Harlan, which is like insane, insane.
It was our tour guide at Lambeau.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's not wrong. That's not a wrong opinion.
No,
It's not at all. Which is even crazier. But yeah, like big shoes to fill, big storms to weather, and yeah, it's been a few years since the Packers won the Super Bowl or even mid in there, but Mark Murphy got them back to Super Bowl promised land after some early turbulence. So
yeah.
you're
I mean, no, I agree with you. Like
oh
it's
okay.
crazy that he's like been around that long. For 2007 was his first season, which was like the year Brett Favre left, and that was his like the first huge thing he had to endure. And then yeah, ever since then, and everything that they've went through, um, on and off the field, and transformations of the stadium, the Telethon district being established, and now obviously getting the draft come the spring. But um, the reason you were looking at me funny when I made that face because I'm
Yeah.
on his Wikipedia page. Uh, I didn't know he had such a good career as a player. Like I didn't know that his highlights for other people who didn't know he was a Super Bowl champion, first team
Two
all
time,
uh
I think. I could be wrong.
just one according to Wikipedia. Super Bowl
Um,
27, I think, because it's those Roman numerals. Um, but then first team All Pro, a Pro Bowler, and he led the league in interceptions. All of those latter three were in 1983. Like I had no idea. He's on the 90 greatest formerly Washington football team. I'm not gonna say the word. Uh, Players there. Like I had no idea he had such a standout career. I knew he played. I didn't know that he was that good. So good on him, kind of thing. Regardless, yeah, I think it obviously totally deserved. Like I don't see any reality in which you can't call Mark Murphy the second, if not first, most important owner in Packers history. Like it's been a good one. He's up there for sure. You can probably argue around and around about who's the most important one, but still, he's pretty good. Deserves it. And I forget who's filling his shoes. That name is escaping me at
Ed
the.
Policy.
Yep, Ed Policy. How could I forget the name like that? So I mean, like it's a pretty remarkable name for a front office guy. So, all right. Anything else on Mark Murphy? Or should we move on?
No, I'm sure we'll probably talk more about it
Yeah,
when the time comes and all the coronations that will surely happen probably for months, really,
yeah,
because that draft thing is really his baby.
for sure, for sure. So yeah, but let's move on. The other news and notes: the Packers activated running back Marshawn Lloyd off of injured reserve and placed him on the non-football injury list. He ruptured his appendix last Saturday, I believe, um, after coming off of the or entering his injury report window earlier that week. So he was coming back from his hamstring injury, ready to go, and then wakes up with a bursting appendix, which is just the worst luck for a rookie. So putting him on the non-football injury list, I would imagine would probably sideline him for the year. The light googling I saw is like 2 weeks until you can quote return to work. But work for Marshawn Lloyd isn't in a cubicle. It's getting tackled by men
It's
twice
getting
twice his
cubicled.
size. Yeah, getting hit
Yeah.
by a cubicle essentially. And so who knows if Marshawn Lloyd will come off of injured reserve or come off the NFI um, this year at all. But hopefully, if he doesn't, hopefully he comes back next year ready to go and roaring to make an impact. And if he does, at least he'll have some fresh legs going in for the playoff push and end of the year. So hopefully, I saw something where he was riding to practice with Josh Jacobs like every day to keep him focused. So it's not like he's not around the team or not learning on the job while he's was nursing his injury. So hopefully that fire is still um, burning in or burning in him come end of the year if that's when he plays or
Well,
next year.
I would also say not a doctor, but considering Marshawn Lloyd's year so far, I would say get that checked out because if you have a fire burning in you, um,
Well, that was the
if
appendix.
you exactly if you open up Webster's dictionary, you look up the word snake bitten, Marshawn Lloyd's pictures there.
I wouldn't even call him snake bitten yet.
I mean, it's been really in all reality, which is our reality. I mean, um, to be a truth teller here, it's probably better that he has a redshirt year at this point, considering he had multiple hamstring injuries prevent him from being at full health, fully
Mm-hmm.
healthy, seeing the field. And then when this comes up, it's like you can't help but like just roll with the punches. It's disappointing to say the least, but for someone that already was coming in the year pretty banged up, and he plays a very demanding position, so probably better that you know he's sidelined and can kind of fully focus
Yeah,
on.
better
Uh,
contextually.
yeah, I think my worry was when this is before the appendicitis and all that stuff, the appendectomy. My worry is that they were going to rush him, especially from muscle injuries, and how his brief time in Green Bay has gone so far, and so I guess it takes an active body
Yeah,
to necessitate the issue. So
no, I get you. Yeah, I'm with you on all things that way. So, alrighty, let's go into the series history of this Packers 49ers matchup. The Packers are 38, 28, and 1 in their 63 meetings against the 49ers. They've had 10 meetings in the playoffs, and they are 4 and 6 against them in the playoffs. Matt LaFleur is 2 and 4 against the Niners and head coach Kyle Shanahan. Uh, this team has history, has a lot of history.
got
There,
beef.
there's a lot of beef. I forget who tweeted it. It might have been Matt Schneeman or Andy Herman or something like that. I forget who it was, but one of the beat guys was talking about how in the 90s, Steve Young didn't get to as many Super Bowls and didn't get as far in the playoffs as you might imagine, part and parcel because the Packers kept uh, limiting him to do such, kind of shutting the window on that 49ers um, dynasty in the 90s. Script flips come the 2010s. Niners stop Aaron Rodgers from making the playoffs twice early in his stint, or not especially early in his stint,
Twice
but
late.
yeah, and then twice late. And now we come to this point in the rivalry. 49ers knocked the Packers out of the playoffs last year in a tough game to lose, and now this year the Niners are sputtering. They're got a whole lot of injuries. They haven't looked good all year. They're 5-5 in a tight NFC West race where I think there's 3 teams that are 5-5, and I think one of them is 6-4, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. And so,
And the 49ers are in last place technically by tiebreaker.
yep. And so they're coming off of a loss to the Seahawks, and I don't think they have a. No, I'm looking now. They don't have a division win. They've lost.
Nope.
They've lost by a combined 7 points to each of the Seahawks, Cardinals, and
Actually,
Rams.
they have been
Oh, I see
the
that.
they
Yep, they beat the Seahawks
yeah.
in week 6 or something like that is. So they're 1-3 in the division. Um, but yeah, it's been close for their 3 losses that they have, and it's probably because they're just so injured. And so let's get into um,
Also, I just want to preface too.
mhm,
It does not get any easier for them. They have the fourth hardest strength of schedule left.
mhm.
After the Packers, they play in no particular order. The Lions, the Bills, the Cardinals, the Rams, Bears, and Dolphins.
Yeah, that's
So
that's hard.
yeah, the fact that Tankathon lists their lesser opponents as the Bears and Dolphins, which they are lesser by comparison, is still not easy.
No,
And considering where this team is health wise, on top of everything else, it's not great for them.
no,
That's
it's
for sure.
not. So just this season, they've already had to deal with Christian McCaffrey being out for 9 weeks as he had a sore Achilles. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL and MCL against the Chiefs after that whole debacle in the offseason. Not that those are related, but uh, just unfortunate that that's how it shakes out. Uh, Dre Greenlaw is on IR with a torn Achilles. Javon Hargrave is out for the season with a torn tricep. Uh, I had to stop myself from laughing because I didn't read Ricky Pearsall's injury before reading this. Ricky Pearsall shot during the middle of the season, or I'm sorry, before the season began. I think it was between training camp and week 1, if I'm
It
not
was.
mistaken. He's back playing now, thankfully, but just a crazy thing that they had to deal with. Um, And then going to the injury report now, we'll go through like the full one in a minute, but um, George Kittle was out against the Seahawks on Sunday, and Nick Bosa led halfway through with a muscle injury. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, but yeah, those two guys are both out against the Seahawks. Brock Purdy pulled himself from practice on Wednesday because he was having shoulder issues, and then he was limited in practice on Thursday, and he threw some more before going to the weight room. Kyle Shanahan said that Purdy has not been doing his normal workload during practice. Um, their backups are Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs, so they might be out Brock Purdy, which is not great. And then Kyle Shanahan mentioned that Bosa and left tackle Trent Williams, who has like again who also had their contract dispute in the offseason, will both be game time decisions. Like the Niners, you want to talk about snake bitten, Jordan? Those guys have been
Yeah,
like, and Debo's missed a few games. I'm pretty sure this year.
he I believe had appendicitis or appendectomy
Yeah,
too. I'm not.
you
I believe
both of
so.
those words are right. They're just different things.
Yeah.
Appendicitis is the disease. Appendectomy is the surgery. So you're right. He had both. But yeah, dude, it's just like I mean, even like I think Jordan Mason, their backup running back behind Christian McCaffrey, I think he went down mid game in like week 3 or 4, with like a soft tissue injury, and his back was back playing a couple weeks later. But it's just like they can't stay healthy, and
Yeah.
from a pure football perspective, that's tough because like they've lost a lot of important games for their like for their schedule. They've lost against the Vikings, they've lost against the Rams, they've lost against the Cardinals, and they lost against the Seahawks. But if you look in the Chiefs, but that doesn't matter for like playoff implications. But if you look at all their wins, none of them matter. Like they beat the
Yeah.
Jets, AFC team, beat the Patriots, AFC team, uh, beat the Cowboys, not a playoff team, beat the Seahawks, nullified by their loss this week earlier or on Sunday to the Seahawks. The only like consequential win that they have in as it pertains to like a playoff picture is they beat the Buccaneers 2 weeks ago 23-20. And even
Yeah.
then, the Buccaneers are sliding because they're without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, there's there a chance the Buccaneers make the playoffs? Maybe, but right now they're 11th, so it doesn't really matter. They're only the Niners are 5-5, and the Buccaneers are 4-6. Like it's
2-4 and one score games too. By the way,
yeah, it's not good. Like
I
it's
believe they've blown, at least from reading, people around the Bay Area that cover the team, and whether it's for the Athletic or elsewhere, they've blown. Part of the reason why they lost the divisional games is that they blew fourth quarter leads to the Rams and Seahawks, which obviously happened last week too. It's just like everything. I think the injuries aside, like there's two separate issues: is that they played a lot of football over the last what 4 years
five
specifically,
5 years
5 years.
since 2019 when the Packers lost to them in the NFC Championship
Yeah,
game.
and then so that's obviously going to catch up to you, especially when quarterbacks changed. You make the move for McCaffrey, but still you're going deep every postseason run.
And it's not like he's got low amounts of wear on him either.
No, he again plays the most demanding position in all of football, and he's starting to feel the effects of it. But I think too, it's just like this team's best punch isn't as devastating as it was as even as last year. Like it really, I don't think this is coming out of nowhere because you mentioned it, and I've written about it a lot whenever I've written Packers stuff on our GSPN Substack stuff. Is like Packers were a quarter away from the NFC Championship, and it wasn't just because the Packers were playing well. They were playing maybe at best a B level game, if not a little lower. 49ers took every reason to slow play it, get in their own way, whatever the case was. And it they obviously won the game, and hats off to you for kind of eventually coming around and doing what you should have been doing. But if that whole playoff run was very inconsistent. It was not they were not playing complete games. Obviously, they had to come back and beat the Lions with an even bigger deficit to overcome in the championship game. Super Bowl itself was pretty gritty, but not like a flawless, efficient performance by any means. Like
Yeah.
this team kind of has been showing signs of decline, and the physical injuries obviously exaggerate what was already there. But I think that to me is kind of more telling of where they are at, and it's just the nature of it's. This is why it's hard to sustain this level of
Well, yeah.
success, competition, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the fact too, like it's not a coincidence that they're starting to have a little bit of turbulence when the division's actually good.
Yeah.
It's not just them and the Rams, or it's not just them and the Seahawks anymore. It's like all four
All
teams in
four of them
that
are good.
division are legitimately good. I mean, the Cardinals are the division leader, but I think everybody has a credible case to see. Even the 49ers currently, they all have a credible case to be. Well, we could still win the division by the end of it.
Yep. It's
Um,
very mid 2010s NFC East.
Absolutely, yeah. So I just think it's twofold, but obviously one bleeds into the other. Whether you think their slide this year is a result of the injuries that they've had, or as I would argue, I mean it's yin and there's a yin and yang there,
Mm-hmm.
synergy there. But I would say this is already happening with this team. It's just it's not. There are some guys like I mean we'll get into some individuals that have emerged, but I would still say go back to even last year's playoff run. It was still not like what I imagined the 49ers being this devastating force. Like
Right.
when the postseason came around, they were not playing their best football.
No, and
That was
it's
happening
and
the
it's
last like
still
7 weeks of the
and
season.
it still took overtime for them to lose to the Chiefs. Like like I
Yeah,
think last year might have been like, and again, this is severely living in the moment based on how they look right now. But if you go through, like say this is the end for the Niners. Again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves before we talk about this game
and
on Sunday.
please God, make it so.
Yeah,
Just
but
end
like,
it.
but like that team last year was really good,
Yeah,
and they almost stumbled their way into a title. And I
yeah.
think like if there's ever like a season to have after that, it's this one. Because like I
Oh
said,
yeah.
they've been playing this high level football for 5 years, mostly with the same guys. Like Purdy's new, obviously. McCaffrey was is new for some of it for the last 3 years, and it's like, but Debo was there, Kittle was there, Fred Warner was there, so was
I think even Jennings is there
yep,
as much as he was like a little
like
used
a
player.
yep, Trent Williams was there. Like they they're they've been playing a lot of
Bosa,
football.
right?
Bosa, yes, because he was the first one drafted. Nick was before Joey, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Um, but like they're just playing a lot of
Fred
football.
Warner.
What'd you say?
Fred Warner.
I said him, didn't I?
You might have.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting already.
Regardless, it's that's the state of the Niners coming into this game. So we'll talk about them a little bit more in a second, but I want to get through the rest of this injury report. Um, on the Packers side, Matt LaFleur talked about how rookie running back Edgerrin Cooper might not play this week. He hurt his hamstring in Wednesday's practice. I believe he was a DMP today as well. And then Matt Schneeman with the Athletic reported this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, that Packers quarterback Jair Alexander sprained his PCL earlier this year. That's the knee injury he's been dealing with. And that was what he re-aggravated during the Bears game that led him to be not playing the rest of the game after like 10 snaps. So um, I would not expect Jair to play this week. I think they're going to let him get healthy. and just not have to have keep having these setbacks week in and week out. So, with that being said, the injury report for the Packers is as such. Jair Alexander, DMP with his knee injury, as I just discussed. Kenny Clark is still nursing that toe injury. He was limited in practice Wednesday and Thursday. Um, like I mentioned, Edrin Cooper was a DMP on Thursday with that new hamstring injury. Josh Jacobs with a quad and a calf injury, limited both days. Elton Jenkins was on it for rest. He was a full participant, along with Rasheed Walker, who's nursing a knee injury. And then Josh Myers, Evan Williams, and Colby Wooden were all limited with wrist, hamstring, and shoulder injuries, respectively. For the Niners, they had a lot of DMPs, including linebacker Tatum Bethune with a knee injury, Nick Bosa with his hip and oblique injury, uh, Kevin Givens, their D tackle, is a groin injury. He was DMP as well, and so was Trent Williams with his ankle injury. Uh, Limited in practice, or I'm sorry, Jacob Cowing, their wide receiver, was also a DMP. Um, Limited in practice for them was their center John Feliciano with a knee injury, George Kittle with his hamstring injury, and then Christian McCaffrey was vet rest, but he was limited. Brock Purdy with his shoulder injury, as we mentioned earlier, and then their cornerback has a personal. Uh, their cornerback Charvarius Ward has a personal matter, and he was limited in practice as well. So not too lengthy for each team, but definitely some impact players on both sides for each side getting DMPs. So they're gonna both teams are kind of gonna hobble into this game on Sunday at Lambeau Field. But I guess let's start with the Niners and this offense that they have that has been, for all intents and purposes, pretty good despite their record. They're second in the NFL with 398.9 yards per game. 23 touchdowns is 20th. 0.07 EPA per play, which is fifth. And they are 48.8% in the red zone, um, converting red zone trips into touchdowns, which is good for 26th in the league. So not so good there. But uh, Zach Cruz tweeted this afternoon, or this morning rather, the Niners are fifth, or I'm sorry, fourth in PFF grade just overall, sixth in DVOA, third in NAY over N ANY over A. I'm not.
Slash A.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what that one is. Or
I keep seeing that. I know like other.
average net yards per attempt.
There you go.
That's what it is. Um, and then fifth in EPA per play and second in yards per play, as I mentioned. He likened it to a metaphor, but they're a sleeping giant and a cornered animal. And so he said, "Can the Packers deliver a kill shot?" And I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Is the Packers defense has been playing a lot better as of late. Obviously not on Sunday, but I think I've come to terms with Sunday's game being you just didn't know how the Bears were going to use Caleb Williams with their new offensive coordinator. That's kind of how I am coping with that performance. I think
I believe a pack. I can't remember what Packers player said that, but they echoed that thing
echoed
of
that same sentiment.
yes.
So, I mean, given the rest of the body of the work of the defense throughout the year, I'm fine with it. Like, I still would like to see a change happen, but I think going into this game, I'm sure Jeff Hathley has looked at the 49ers offense multiple times since he's gotten this job, knowing that they're the rival, and especially Matt LaFleur's rival at this point. And so I'm excited to see what they'll draw up to really slow down this Niners offense. I think first and foremost, you just have to stop McCaffrey. Like that's just first and foremost. And if Brock Purdy plays, that'll make them a bit one dimensional. Excuse me. But yeah, I guess what are your takes on the Niners offense?
Um. Yeah, I mean the talent is there even with losing Ayuk, McCaffrey. You mentioned before, Jordan Mason pretty much did the best anyone thought he would without him. When the or I should say when the 49ers were without McCaffrey.
Right.
But this is clearly still a talented offense. It's just not executing. You know, it sounds familiar, but it's a little different in terms of execution is not there. Um, like the Packers offense, if you want to make that similarity. But I think it's a tricky spot to game plan because obviously the variability is injuries. Brock Purdy being the biggest of them. Believe a 49ers Matt Burrows, he's the 49ers beat reporter for the Athletic, mentioned that there was a similar scenario with Brock Purdy last year where didn't practice, had injured ribs. It's obviously, pretty nagging injury that you don't want your star quarterback to be suffering. Didn't practice, and then when game time came, he played. So it's very possible that Brock Purdy does play. Obviously,
Yeah,
you
I'd
need your
imagine he does,
shoulder to
but
throw passes.
right.
So I wonder how the offense would change that. You mentioned Jeff Halfley. I mean, he knows how Kyle Shanahan operates, considering that he was only for a year and very early on in that tenure, but knows how he wants to play, knows how he calls plays, how he operates the game plan itself. It's just a matter of talent meeting talent. You know what I mean? That you can game plan for all you want. Even in this iteration of the 49ers, there's still players that will get into of that you have to key in on the scouting report. But I don't know. It's such a weird matchup to kind of like forecast because of not just the Purdy injury, but it's a team that has underperformed. It's an offense that moves the ball as well as say for a few of the top offenses in the league, and yet it's not all the way there for a variety of reasons. So you don't want to be the team that they kind of figure that all out against. Obviously, I think that's
That's
the
the big
biggest
issue. Is
the
like
big issue
you
that
don't want to be that team.
yeah. And I mean, I would be curious to see how you know I'm scratching that point. The Packers likely players that they won't have complicates the issues of just preparing for still a loaded 49ers team.
Yeah, for sure. Like the injuries are going to play a big part in this. I think. Let's move down to your other point before getting to the Niners defense. Like the weapons that the Niners have, Brock Purdy or no Brock Purdy, are still very, very dangerous. Between Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, and Debo Samuel, all of those guys, all of those guys are a problem for the state of this Packers defense when it comes to coverage. Like if they have no Jair, I don't know who's really going to run with Debo or Juwan Jennings. That's a tough assignment. If they have no Edgerrin Cooper, their spy for running back or for quarterbacks, as well as who's covering the running back out of the backfield on flat, like in the flat and wheel routes and things like that, becomes a tough assignment. I'm not trusting Quay Walker with that at the moment. Edgerrin Cooper was doing pretty good at that, and then it's it's tough just covering tight ends in this league in general, especially a all pro tight end like George Kittle. Packers stats against opposing tight ends this year: 54 catches, 550 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's nothing to turn your nose at. Like I think one of those touchdowns is Evan Ingram, who's
Yep,
not really a tight end. He's a wide receiver tight end hybrid, but that's his position, so that counts. And that a lot of those yards came at the end of the game for Evan Ingram. But I mean, it's just tough covering a guy like George Kittle who's huge. So
huge.
huge. Juwan Jennings ranks fifth in receiving yards per route run at 5.7, and he's 11th in target share at nearly 30%. So, and then Debo Samuel's 9.5 yards per touch is the second worst of his career, but he's still versatile. Like you can't just leave him alone. He'll catch balls over the middle all day long. It's just it's they're still a dangerous team. Like it's hard to balance in my brain like this team with what they are currently and all the guys that they have that are able to compete, right? Because like it's it's I have PTSD, Jordan. They're a hard team to
Yeah,
beat, especially when they're clicking. And if there's any time a team is gonna get up and want to fight for something. It's a game like this for the Niners going against one of their biggest rivals, the Packers, as well. Again on the road, like I wouldn't be surprised if this game is either a blowout or close again. Like either way, honestly. Which I know is
Yeah.
like three of the most common options you can have for a game. But do you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's there's variables to this.
Yeah. I it is really tough. I think the secondary Jair's injury, I mean, I think I agree with you. He's obviously not going to play this week. He hasn't been practicing this week, so most likely that means you're out. But I think this is an injury that's certainly going to linger as much as he's optimistic of returning later in the season. Um, I just don't. Keyshawn Nixon on the outside, Carrington Valentine, who looks like has usurped Eric Stokes as the other outside
It's not
cornerback.
great.
It's not easy, yeah, not for a high bar to clear there, but that's that's a challenge already. You mentioned the linebacker kind of dilemma is like Eric Wilson's been coming up big in these kind of moments where the Packers are in a pinch, but then it's still a lot for Quay Walker. Um,
Yeah.
McDuffie will probably see a little bit of Hopper, the rookie linebacker, too.
Yep.
So like,
I don't think we've seen much of him at all this year.
no, I think a lot of it's been special teams.
Yeah.
Um,
I forgot he existed to be honest.
I don't blame you. Um, but yeah, again, I think part of it is like this. We're going back to a 49ers team. You mentioned it, um, but they came into Green Bay. They know how to play in Green Bay and win.
Yeah, they've
And
done it a few times.
that was with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? That's Garoppolo still.
Yep.
Um,
Last year of them.
yes, that's right. Um,
Well, kind of.
yeah,
Last
it
full
was
year.
weird.
Last full year. Then he got
Um,
hurt, and then it was Trey Lance for 20 minutes, and then it was Brock Purdy. And then it was two other guys that got hurt because Brock Purdy hurt himself in that season. Like that, that was a crazy season. But sorry, go on.
uh, I a lot. I think again, very hard to talk about this game without knowing specifics, but still with some. We can only go on what the Packers have in their secondary. It's not great, but it's still they're still finding ways to make this work, which is kind of remarkable. I don't know if it's sustainable when you're going up against the Lions of the world, certainly, or even maybe the Vikings. We'll see in a couple of weeks. But yeah, this could be. I fear for this defense big time, um,
Yeah.
and what this means. And we're still if Trent Williams has been a game is a game time decision that swings another wrinkle into this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of plates spinning right now that could see this outcome just teeter both ends. I kind of before we give our predictions later, I think this will be a very close game, very close game.
Okay.
It's what both teams have been playing this year,
Oh yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Um, Springboarding from that, talking about close games. Let's go into like the key stats for the Niners defense because Niners defense, stats wise, has been kind of good to average. A lot of their stats are middle of the pack. 22.2 points per game allowed, 17th in the league. 302 yards per game allowed. That's sixth best. 24 TDs allowed, 17th best. So middle of the pack right there. Negative .09 EPA per play is ninth best, and they are 20 of 32 on red zone defense. That is 23rd in the league. You look at their games played and how um, and sort of how they've shaken out. They have not let up a 30-point game this year. That
Hmm.
no team has scored 30 points against them. Um, they've only scored 30 points four times. So in four of their five wins, they've scored 30 points. The highest of which was 36 against Seattle a few weeks ago, and then 32 against the Jets on the opening week. But I mean, I think this team is really just a grinded out defense right now because they're holding good offenses. Like, I mean, I don't now that I'm looking at their schedule, I don't want to say good offenses because they haven't really played anybody good. Like the Vikings offense is probably the best offense they played at the time, and
Yeah.
they held them to 23 points. Still, like that's a fine number, but it wasn't 30-35 like they were putting up uh early on too. Then they played the Jets, the Vikings, the Rams, the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, and the Seahawks. There's no really offensive like stud in there. Like I think the Packers offense has the potential to like be the best offense they've played thus far outside of that Vikings game. And so I think it's going to take another good performance from this Packers team to really get them over the hump over this game. Like I think they have to keep the momentum going that they've had after this past week against the Bears because they did away with a lot of the penalties that they were struggling with throughout the season, coming out of the bye against Chicago. I think they only had the one. I think the RPO legal man downfield on Elton Jenkins when Jordan Love decided to throw it instead of run it. And other than that, they looked pretty decent, like discipline wise on offense. And so if you can do that, and if again, it's a big if, but if Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa plays on Sunday, like that'll be good to keep him in check. Like Leonard Floyd is still on this team, Malik Collins is still on this team. Their uh their secondary is a bit of names that you probably haven't heard of or isn't the guys you're used to thinking of, but they're talented back there. Like Travarius Ward is good. Um, Diamador Lenore leads them in interceptions with two this year. Um,
Recently extended too.
Yep, Fred Warner's still on this team. He's really good. Like, it I hate to pick on the guy, but the guy they need to pick on is Devondre Campbell. Like, get him in situations where he has to cover Josh Jacobs in space, or they has to fill a hole where Josh Jacobs is going to run because he's having a tough year. I know a couple of Niners fans, and they're not happy with him. He's not playing well whatsoever, but he's still like
Who could have seen it?
getting consistent snaps. I know, but like there's guys on this team, and it's tough to really break through towards them or against them. So I'd like to see another day of Josh Jacobs having a good game on the ground because this team is at its best when the running game is going. And I mean, hell, I think what they really need to do as an offense is just focus on their guys. Keep rotating Dontavian Wicks in like every 15 plays ish. Like I don't think he needs to be out there that often. I would rather just see them work with their studs. Get Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs all in the game and let them lead you to victory because I think you need studs to beat this team. And I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but like I don't think Wicks is there yet and I don't need him dropping passes again when it really matters. And so like we're starting to get into the thick of the season where those mistakes are amplified. Like as we saw earlier in the season, those mistakes are okay because it's the beginning of the season. There's a lot of football left to be played. Half the season's gone now. You're starting a really tough stretch of your schedule to where you need to win a lot of these games to be in a good spot in the playoffs. And with that comes making sure you're disciplined. And so I think just run with the guys. I want to see Jaden Reed out in space more. I don't want him being used like as the gadget guy for a few end arounds or reverses during the game. I think that's fine once or twice, maybe. I'd prefer just once. I'm fine with all the motion that they send him on, but I think it all has like proper timing. Like go ahead and send him in motion in the red zone so long as it results in him running a route versus just being in motion to see if they're in man or in zone, you know? And so, like, I know that that's important information for Jordan Love to have when he's calling the plays and making audibles, but at the end of the day, he's a stud. He's the best receiver on the team. And he should be used as such. Same thing
Yeah,
with Christian Watson. I like his ability to be down the field and catching big time deep passes and balls that are coming his way that way. But again, I'd like to see him used more in a way that isn't just hyper MVS. Like I think he does a lot more than what MVS is capable of doing, and I want to see him used like that. I mean, Romero Dobbs having a bit of a quiet year. He's like kind of comes and goes in waves when when he's on, when he's not, which is how we thought this offense would go in the first place. And so, like, if he's going to be the guy this game, so be it. But I really don't think you need to mess with having any other receivers that aren't those pass catchers on the field at all times. And even like Tucker Kraft, I think he was targeted just the once last week on the
yeah, he
interception.
was.
Like, get him involved. He's like the probably gonna be the best tight end in football next year. Maybe Brock Bowers might be in that conversation. So he's pretty
George
good.
Kittle.
I mean, George Kittle to me is thermite. He burns really hot when he's on, but he is not a consistent tight end. He's
I
a
think that's. I don't think that's a George Kittle thing. I think that speaks to more
it's
of
a
tight ends being.
Kyle Shanahan offense thing. But like when I think of like
Yeah, but
elite tight ends, I think of like Travis Kelsey. Like prime Travis Kelsey was getting 100 yards a game like the entire season. Like that
crazy target share.
crazy
I
target
think
share,
that's.
all of it. But I mean, George Kittle has 2 games over 80 yards this year, and like that's fine. Those are good days. It's not best tight end in the league production. That and that's not taking anything away from George Kittle. Like I just think he has more use in the Shanahan offense as a run blocker as well. He's a really good blocker outside, and he's a good tight end. But he doesn't have the production I would anticipate him having the rest of this year and next year. He's gonna be 32 middle of the season next year. That I would not be surprised if that he starts like slowing down a little bit. Again, I like George Kittle. It's
I will say George Kittle is second in receiving yards among tight ends this year and leads leads tight ends with 7 touchdowns.
I would
Tucker
say
Kraft. Tucker Kraft is second, by the way,
yeah,
in that last
that's what I'm
category.
saying. Like, but the and part of that too is that this is a larger conversation. I think tight end play is really depressed this year.
Oh, it's been going down. I mean, since
I mean,
Gronk,
sure, but like last year you had Kelsey and Mark Andrews really good, right? Like
even then,
Dawson Knox has went away. He's not doing anything much anymore. Like I think like
Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts hasn't really. He's had a better year than he did in the past few years. Like T.J. Hawkinson is still not T.J. Hawkinson of last year when he was lighting the season on or lighting the NFL on fire.
Parker injury.
Right, but like that's what I'm saying is that like think of the top tight ends this year: it's George Kittle, Sam Laporta, who's having a down year after his rookie year.
Trey McBride had a couple
Yep,
injury.
and then like Tucker Kraft. But like other than that, it's kind of
It's becoming more utility again rather than the Kelsey's, Gronks, Antonio Gates before all this, Tony Gonzalez. Like we remember those players because they were outliers,
yep.
and now it feels like there are fewer outliers. But I think it's also like you mentioned it. I think what have we said about this Packers offense and just how it, you mentioned with like Dow specifically, but it obviously embodies the entire Packers offense. Is that it comes and goes. One week's it's Christian Watson to have 4 catches, 150 yards, and then it's the week before it's Jaden Reed giving life to a passing offense that can't move the ball. Like part of that's football, but I think it's part of it's the design of this offense, and obviously, what greater offense can you mirror than the 49ers in like in terms of talent level. Um, the 49ers are at just a different part of their age cycle and life cycle than the Packers are, but still essentially functions the same in my mind. Like each when we talk about Jawan Jennings, Debo Samuel, George Kittle, obviously all players play different positions of where they're aligned on the field, but their use and usage and versatility and skill set is overlaps with one another very well to the point where this is an offense that thrive theoretically or has shown moments, maybe not all of this year, but certainly last year, of working well in tandem with one another. So I think that's where it's really challenging for this offense to light up the 49ers, especially with this defense playing, keeping them in games at least, is that, it's the obvious. It's that they see some variation of this offense all the time in practice because it is their offense, essentially. Like, it's not the same, to a T, maybe not even 50% of it, but the blueprint of how Matt LaFleur operates and play, like, game plans, runs the offense, stems from a very similar ideological level that Kyle Shanahan brings to the table. So it is just different in how you know that intimate knowledge. You know how what this team wants to play, and it because it is an offshoot of how you want to play. So it's just a good jumping off point that you can take away the or cut through the things that kind of bring noise, whether it's pre-snap motions or the kind of tells that they're going to run play to play. Like, it's just like both teams are very, whether it's because of the coaching staff itself or how they grew into prominence and power, is because it all stems from the same pool, and it just, coaching tree, if you will, and it just feeds off into it one another. So I think that's where, going to Sunday, you obviously have the biggest problem. I think even Tom Clements was saying today, when all the assistants and coordinators were meeting with the media, he was saying no one on offense has hit their true stride this year. Which, I mean,
I really hope we can stop saying that soon.
I certainly do too.
Like
I
I'm
think the
not
only
like pushing back
I think the
against you.
only
I'm just like I'm
player that can, no, you.
no, finish your point.
I was just saying, I think the only player that could maybe say, is Jaden Reed.
I think Josh Jacobs has been pretty good all year long.
I agree, but I think
Unless Tom Clements was just talking about the passing offense.
no, I think he was talking about the entire
Then
offense.
I would say like Josh Jacobs has definitely hit his. He's like one of the better backs in football this year, even as Bill Barnwell tells you otherwise. But uh no, I wish we could stop saying that because I'm excited to see what it looks like when they do click because it's scary. It's real scary hours. And
The
so,
exact quote was, "No one offensive has played their best football yet, and we're striving to get to that point."
sure, Tom, I'll begrudgingly agree with you. I just don't know what the best Josh Jacobs game looks like when he's had games of over 150 yards and has had good touchdowns this year and has probably a decent amount of games over 100 yards from scrimmage, if I was to guess. But regardless, not the point. But no, but I think like that when this team clicks, it's going to be scary for the league. And if they can do it down this stretch and into the playoffs, they can have a chance to achieve something really good. But against a good defense, that like last week, they didn't look good coming out of the bye. That's really not an option, frankly. Like they won by a fingernail, literally. And if they continue to look like that against good defenses, like it's going to be tough for them to do anything of significance down the line here because they have tough games. We've talked about it a few times now. Like the Niners have a good defense. Dolphins on Thanksgiving is going to be a tough game regardless because it's Thanksgiving and the Dolphins aren't exactly pushovers. Then it's the Lions again on Thursday. That's it's a tough game. They have a really good defense. Um, Seattle in Seattle, that'll be a tough game. You get a little bit of a break with the Saints, but then the Vikings at in Minnesota, that'll be a tough game. Um, and the Bears to end the season. Like they're gonna face a lot of good defenses, and so at some point they have to start hitting their stride. And what better time to do that than right now?
I agree.
So Jordan, anything else, or should we talk about players to watch?
Let's get into the fun stuff.
Who's your player to watch for this week, or is it me?
I'll go first.
Okay,
My player to watch. I'm gonna go 49ers to start. I'm gonna go Jawan Jennings. I think
it's a good pick.
he's been a player for quite a while, and now that he's really thriving in this, bigger role, um, he's gonna be a big problem. It's a different level of. I mean, even he showed up big time in that playoff game last year too, right? I want to say he was.
He did. I think he had a couple touchdowns. He hit a touchdown. I'm pretty sure. I had that game log open, and then I had closed it.
Let me. Yeah, you looked that up, but
Oh,
I
I
think
got it. It's right here. In the game against the Niners, the divisional game last year, Jawan Jennings had 5 catches, 61 yards. So not a huge impact, but still a
not a
decent
huge
game.
game, but in the face of it all, I felt like a lot of those catches were backbreakers,
Yeah,
like third down
that
conversions,
would
stuff like
that wouldn't
that.
surprise me.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I just think they're reading a lot of stuff about what he's done this year is that the more snaps he's gotten, his productions have dipped. Like it's increased, obviously, which for a player of Juwan Jennings' past, like it's always the test, like the Tony Pollard test, like last year, is that this guy really excels in a very limited but super sub type role. Some players dip, some players excel. He's excelling. So Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, whoever else is going to be in the mix to guard him on the outside, like good luck. Like
Horrifying,
this,
horrifying.
yeah, it's tough. It makes it really it could compromise their defense really hard. And we're not even talking about George Kittle or Christian McCaffrey or even Debo Samuel. So
Yeah, I that's like what I'm worried about for like my players to watch. So my player to watch for the Niners is Christian McCaffrey. Like fear of God in me from that man and what he did to the Packers last year. Just death by a thousand cuts from him. He had 2 touchdowns in that game, both of which were in the red zone. I'm pretty sure. But the way they haven't been able to stop the run that well this year against good backs, I'm worried to say the least. So
plus dual threat backs is
it is
the
always
other thing.
troublesome for them. Again, like you're
And
expecting
if
Quay
you're
Walker to
playing
expect to cover Christian McCaffrey, it's gonna be tough.
if you're playing a quarterback that can't throw the ball more than 10 yards, like
You'll end up with
I
a
think
lot of game plan that looked like what happened last week against the Bears. A lot of stuff underneath and in the flat. And if you're gonna give players the ball in space like that, like Jawan Jennings, like Christian McCaffrey, like Debo Samuel, they are skilled enough players to really make it hurt.
we might be overthinking this with just the priority of it all because if you're looking to move the ball, like you need someone that can make those throws. But if there's a team that I think can thrive playing a dink and dunk check down kind of game and still make extend plays after that, it's the 49ers.
Oh, for sure, without a
So
doubt.
that's where
I don't think Kyle Shanahan has any problem making this game simple for his team. Like I think that's his whole offense.
yeah.
And so and like this offense thrives on creating turnovers, particularly in the secondary. And the best way to negate Xavier McKinney is not to throw deep. You saw it with Caleb
Yep.
Williams last week. Like they had like one throw past 20 yards or something like that, maybe two, and they just didn't do it. And so if you're gonna negate the best player on the defense by not throwing deep, then there you go. I think you'll see some different looks from Jeff Hathley, hopefully, to get McKinney in the box and show some different looks if Evan Williams plays and he's deep. But yeah, that's what I worry about with Christian McCaffrey. He's really good, and so
Yeah.
being able to stop the run is going to be important. And I've yet to see it this year with a decent running back, as I said a couple minutes ago. But yeah, my Packers Jordan Love. I want to see how he rebounds in this what I'm calling a revenge game. I want to see him play way better than he did last year. And we had two interceptions. I don't think one of them was his fault, but I forget. Um, but I want to see a Jordan Love game. I want to see a 15 years down the line. This game has multiple highlights in that compilation video. Jordan Love game. Put the nail in the Niners coffin. Let's get out of here and keep rolling. Kind of game from him.
I'm gonna go Xavier McKinney.
That's important. He's been negated since his breakout beginning of the year. Like I think he's been around obviously, but he hasn't had the impact that he had earlier in the season. I think just solely because they haven't really been throwing that way for him. And I think
Yeah,
they've played teams that haven't needed to. Like the Lions by all means did not need to throw deep whatsoever.
no,
They just didn't because they're they're that good. The Jaguars, I think he had an interception against the Jaguars, did he not?
he did.
So then there you go.
There was still, Brian Thomas is still doing
Brian Thomas thinks.
pretty. Yeah,
Then the Bears didn't throw DB there. And so the last two games they played, he hasn't really had an impact. And so go on about Xavier McKinney, but I'm with you that he'll be an important player on Sunday.
why I just think you only scratch the surface of like it's he's still been decent, but it's obviously not as pretty as bright as the start of the season was. And that's fine. Like we kind of knew that going in is that this is not sustainable.
Nope.
It's really hard to not just generate turnovers to the degree that he was doing, but just be a level of force. It's opposing offenses learn how to game plan out of that and beat you in different ways. But between the secondary not having Jair and starting outside corners that are going to be compromised to some degree, how can you utilize or bring Xavier McKinney into the fold? Because he's going to, focus or be a large presence in this game, whether it's taking on the Kittle routes on some plays. Maybe it's doubling Juwan Jennings. Having that, like, this is where the biggest difference that we could say about this Packers team versus when they faced the 49ers, what, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, is they didn't have an all pro level safety in that defense.
Nope.
They had Darnell Savage, who gave up a
Big touchdown.
home run touchdown to George Kittle.
Yep.
So that alone can be the difference maker in that you're not going to give up a play like that when Xavier McKinney's back there.
You
But
hope not.
I I just want to see something like I think who of this defense I bet on making kind of their presence known in a big game like this? Could it be Rashawn Gary, who's kind of starting to see the light and
Yeah.
turn?
The big thing is it's one game of sample size, but when they traded Preston, Preston always came off the right
Mhm.
edge of the line, and since then, Rashawn Gary has taken over that spot, and he's been having a really efficient. He had a really efficient week against the Bears with that. Um, this is from Zach Cruz. That was he tweeted out yesterday on Wednesday. Um, Gary in 2024 from the left side of the defense, 15 pressures on 182 pass rushes. From the right side, 10 pressures on 54 pass rushes. So way more efficient on the defensive right side going against um, that left tackle, which I joked that like Rashawn Gary's asking for your hardest battles and apparently winning them. So go for it. But yeah, I'm with you. Like need Xavier McKay to have an impact, and if Rashawn Gary can have an impact, that changes this game a whole lot. And so, it, I mean, Rashawn Gary going up against Trent Williams. You want to prove your point, Rashawn? Let's get after it.
or whoever
Or
plays
whoever
for
plays
Trent
Trent
Williams.
Williams, right? So
So yeah, just I think my money is on Xavier McKinney emerging in some fashion, whether it's just eliminating one of these big weapons or you know rising to the moment and picking off Purdy or name this quarterback, or just doing Xavier McKinney things. So that's where I am. You're muted.
I hate to do it. My bad. Score predictions. I'll go first. I hate to do it. Uh, I have 28-27 Niners,
You're
assuming
yeah.
assuming everybody plays. I I fear this team because of who they are, and we haven't had a good Niners experience in a few years, and so I would happily eat crow if the Packers win this game, but I think they lose, like you said, quite close. I fear they're gonna have like you get 27 by kicking two field goals, right? Like I fear that those trips to the red
Or you
zone,
miss one.
or you miss an extra point, but getting to don't say that. Um, I fear that they're going to squander two red zone opportunities, and that's where it's gonna bite them. Where they're not gonna be able to punch it in from first and goal kind of thing, kick a short field goal and take the points, and it's gonna come back to bite them. What about you, Big Pal?
I'm 26-21.
And
I'm doing Packers.
wow, roles are reversed this week.
There's something about this. I'm going no matter what, I'm going to be angered about something. And it could either be this game should not be as close as it should be, or Jesse Pinkman, they can't keep getting away with this gif with the
Yeah,
49ers.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, I forgot what it was, but whatever. All right, folks. That does it for this week's episode of Talk of the Tundra. Rather, this episode of Talk of the Tundra. Thank you all for listening. Go check out the GSPN Substack, only $8 a month. You can get all things GSPN ad free, and the GSPN After Dark pod as well, which are always fun. This week, if you're into the whole footy and soccer bit of it all, GSPN After Dark this week is Adam and Andrew talking about their their emerging bromance that is going to be next week over the Thanksgiving holiday. Andrew's taking the trip over the pond to take in all the football he can with Adam. So it should be a fun time. Go check out that pod. A beefy After Dark for you guys. So, like I said, go check it out. Only $8 a month. All things Bucks, as the Bucks are trending in the right direction, which is good after beating the Chicago Bulls last night. Go check out Win in Six with Jordan and Adam that dropped a new episode this week, and then Ty and Rohan on Eurostep also dropped a new episode this week. So all the Bucks content for you guys if you haven't listened already. New episode of Cruising for a Bruising came out this afternoon, catching up on all the awards. Jackson Churio coming in third in Rookie of the Year, and then announced tonight was William Contreras talking about coming in fifth for the MVP voting. So go check out Cruising for Bruising for all things Brewers as they catch up on a couple of the comings and goings as well for the Brewers, and then obviously make time for this. If I'm not mistaken, uh, they just recorded a new episode on Megalopolis. So if you went and saw that coked out movie, there is a pod for you uh, in the feed pretty soon. So keep a lookout for that. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you on Sunday or Monday. We're not really sure which one yet, but either a live pod on the YouTube, which you should go subscribe to as well, um, or in your podcast feeds on Monday. So thank you for listening. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.